Okay, guys, welcome to this awesome webinar. I'm your host, Lekha Devta. This event is brought to you by Real Estate at Work. Nee will post a link to our meetup page. So if you want to join, stay tuned for upcoming events. We have a treat for you guys today. We have a packed session. The goal for today's webinar is for aspiring and seasoned investors to get a glimpse of different asset classes and also different aspects of real estate investing. So we'll begin with rapid fire presentations from each of our speakers, followed by networking and breakout rooms. Stay for that, it's a lot of fun, and you'll get to network with 3 or 4 people in a small group setting. I have an exciting announcement to make before we get started. My friends at Fixated on Real Estate put together one of the largest real estate expos in the Northwest every year. They have over 1,000 attendees, 300 booths, 75 speakers. This year, however, given the pandemic, Tal Yarber, the creator of this event, is creating what he calls a virtual wonderland when it comes to real estate investing. It'll be one of the largest expos out there. So go buy your tickets. Here's the information. So the expo is September 18th and 19th. Go to the big badass, or is it the badassexpo.com. They're basically going to cover everything from single family fix and flip, BRRRs, rentals, multifamily, commercial, lots of virtual networking, everything from raising capital to syndications. They also have a really cool virtual exhibitor hall with a bunch of different real estate vendors. So super cool event to attend. And the best part about this year's event is you can attend from anywhere in the world. So do that. A lot of the speakers that you'll see on today's webinar will be speaking at the event. I think AJ is on there, Kekoa, Jennifer Beadles, myself, we're all speakers at the expo. So it'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll see you there. Oh, I do have another exciting announcement. I'm one of the co-authors of an upcoming book called The Only Woman in the Room, and it's written by 20 women investors crushing it in real estate. I wasn't able to talk about this book like all these months, but we are publishing soon, so go get your hands on a copy. It's so inspiring. I'm excited for that. Because of all the content we need to cover today, it would be great if you can post your questions in the chat box. Just make sure to say which speaker the question is for so that the speakers can respond once they're done presenting. Like if you have Brad and you have a question for Brad, just say Brad and then say his question and he'll respond once he's done with presenting. All right, Jared Holland's first up. Jared and I go way back. He was part of the very first mastermind that I attended. It was actually Sean Katona's mastermind. And since then, he's gone on to do over 65 flips. So he knows a thing or two about the fix and flip strategy. He's here to give us an overview. Take it away, Holland.
All right. Thank you, Lekha, for the intro. And it is funny, we've gone full circle, met Sean and Lekha at the same event. Now we're all talking, so that's kind of fun. All right, so just a quick intro about myself. So I've been in real estate now going into my 5th year full time. And these are just some quick stats about where I'm at today. Right now, I have 13 houses anywhere between acquisition and sale. I moved into new construction at the beginning of this year. So right now I have a 6-unit townhouse development under construction. I have another 4-unit in permitting right now in West Seattle. And then I'm also building a 4,000 square foot house in Magnolia. So I really dove deep into the new construction side of things. And then since 2017, since I really started my first flipping, I've done around 65 flips, give or take. Kind of lost count a little while ago, but we're trending in that direction. And then for my first 2 years, I think it's pretty noteworthy that I sourced every single one of my deals myself, I think except for 2. So, I really was good about the marketing and getting everything done really by myself from day one. So I'm going to walk you guys through some of the big things that I feel are most important when you're getting into flipping. There we go. Sorry, I had to rearrange my screen. So, the very first thing you always have to look at is how you're going to source the deal. And there's a lot of ways to find a deal in real estate. And the way I look at it is you have to trade one of two things. You either need to trade your time or you have to trade your money. So, you know, whatever one you have, if you do both, that's even better. You're going to be able to find your deal sooner. But if you're just going to be trading your time because you don't have a lot of money, you're just getting started and you just don't really know where to start, you know, here's a good list of ways that you can really just dedicate a ton of time and get out there and meet people. Networking is one of the most important things. You guys are all here today during these breakout sessions. Do that as well. Just reach out to people you know that are doing deals. Get out there, door knock. That one's scary, but it's going to make you so much better at your job, and it's going to break through those barriers. Just cold calling people, for sale by owners, scouring the internet, social media, and just tell everyone you know. Literally, like anytime you go out, hey, I'm looking to buy a house or whatever types of deal you're looking for, you got to keep that at the forefront of your mind. By the way, I don't see the timer, so like ping me or do something if I go too long. The other side of that is just going to be trading your money. If you're still working a full-time job, but you're making good money and you want to get yourself into real estate, then you need to start looking at just paying for your marketing. And there's a quick list of things. I've done every single one of these, and they all give you different kinds of returns. Oh, perfect. And they all cost a very big difference also. The most common one when you're getting started is direct mail. You can literally handwrite letters yourself. You can drive around. You can find these exact properties that you want and just handwrite letters. It's almost free. You pay for the paper and the pen and the stamps, and that's it. And it's one a lot of people do at the very beginning, putting signs around areas you want, literally putting flyers up in neighborhoods. You want to go bigger, you can do radio ads, hiring canvassers, billboards, bus bench ads. Just like any other business, marketing is what's going to be able to keep you moving. So that's really important. All right, I got to move a lot faster here. All right, so how to analyze a deal. I would take a screenshot of this. I'm going to buzz through this really quickly, guys. So this is a very common criteria that people use to be able to look for houses. So you get the after repair value, which is ARV, and then you can just run through those scenarios to be able to figure out if it's a deal or not. Basically, you take the after repair value, subtract the cost of the renovation, and then if you multiply that by about 70%, that's going to get you guys really close. If you get anything close to that, it's going to be a deal. So this is a deal that I actually did. It's got my projected numbers and the actual return that I had. So this one turned out great. Something you really need to be super strong on, though, is comps. Comps can make or break your deals. Somebody asked me before coming on here, how do you kind of curb your risk in a market that's really unpredictable? What I do is I never bank on appreciation. And all of my comps, I plan for selling it between 90 to 95% of what the other houses are selling for. That way, I don't want to be the most expensive house that's sold in that neighborhood. All right, construction. So again, take a screenshot of this because we're going to blast through this really quickly. Estimating is something that can be all over the board. These are historic numbers for me personally. And with those years of houses, this is actually pretty dang accurate, depending on if you have to do more work, reconfigure layouts, really go above and beyond. All of those price per square foot are going to get you like pretty close, but then you really do have to put together your proper repair estimate. But when you're initially analyzing deals, that's going to get you guys pretty close on that side of things. When you're doing the construction, being organized is one of the most important things. Give your contractor everything they need before they need it, and make sure you have your documents in place. You get lien releases, you pay when projects are completed and milestones are being done. Don't write big checks at the beginning and then wonder why nothing's getting done because your contractor's gone. So being really organized during the construction is going to keep you guys on track, and it's going to be able to keep you moving forward the correct way. Just some construction tips. A lot of people ask me, how do you get started? What's the best way? Partnering with either a seasoned investor or a seasoned contractor is the fastest way to give yourself a leg up and really get yourself propelled in the right direction, because there's so many mistakes that can go on. So making sure you work with the right people is super important when you're getting started. And then finally, when you're selling the house, don't get emotional. Yes, you love the house. It's amazing. It's great. Is it the best house on the block? I don't know. Stick to your numbers. Double check comps before you list. There could have been a change in the market. If it increased, awesome. Then you can increase your price accordingly. If it's gone down, you got to play the market and you have to pay attention to what's going on, but you can't get emotional about it. And then lastly, you got to stick to your numbers. When you get ready to sell that house, start looking for the next one, because when you stop looking, everything stops. And then that's it. Boom. Thank you guys.
Good job, Jared. You almost made it. Good job.
Quite hard, man. That was tough.
Yes. Okay, so thank you. That's Jared's information. Contact him. Jared, go ahead and put your email in the chat box too. All right, that is our badass, Jennifer Beadles. Jennifer is the CEO of Agents Invest, a real estate brokerage focused on helping investors looking to expand their portfolios beyond their own markets. True story, I bought my very first out-of-state property through Agents Invest. Jennifer likes to travel as much as I like to travel. She and her family are currently traveling across the US in an RV, while their rental properties make them a handsome passive income. Take it away, Jennifer.
Thanks, Lika. What a fun picture. That was a picture of me surfing in Bali back when we could travel. So yeah, that was a great time. All right. I love the challenge of only getting 5 minutes. I'm going to roll through this if I can change. All right. So really quickly, I could talk about a ton of different strategies, but today we're just going to talk about the benefits of investing out of state. So I love case study examples. Jared, that was a fantastic case study examples that you gave of the flips. But yeah, so I'm going to give you guys a case study example of I call it the build to rent strategy. So we actually built this duplex brand new in Everett, Washington. We were able to get our entire initial investment back, and then we decided to go ahead and do a 1031 exchange. So I had a feeling that I didn't know we were going to run into a global pandemic, but I had a feeling that things were going to change with the economy, and we were getting about $2,400 a unit per side for this duplex that we built in Everett. So we had gotten all our initial investment back, but we still had quite a bit of profit that we could put into other properties. So in this example, we sold this duplex in Everett off market for $670. We were getting about $4,800 a month in rent, and we had about $180,000 for 1031 profits to put into other properties. We ended up trading in this duplex and getting 10 units in Tennessee. So why Tennessee? I like to, as what Wayne Gretzky says, go to where the puck is going. And so for us, I've been looking at a lot of non-income tax states where we're seeing population move to. And so we bought some properties, in Clarksville, Tennessee, and Chattanooga. We were able to trade about $900 a month in cash flow in Washington for about $2,700 a month in Tennessee, and 5x the unit count from this one sale. So here's what they look like. I bought this 8-unit built in 2005 for $510. New rents now are about $5,800, right? So we got this 8-plex and improved what we were getting just from the duplex in Washington. And we added in this duplex for $130,500. The new rents on that are $1,765. We are still under rented. We have some room to increase. We're about 150 under rented on one of the units. So we're able to get additional cash flow once we can increase the rents on there. The other benefit is, I bought that 8-unit for $510 last fall. Today, I would say it's probably worth about $615. So it's gone up in value over $100,000. Same for the duplex. We had it reappraised. So we're kind of using a delayed BRRR strategy with that property. And that one appraised for $155. So again, we placed our 1031, we 5x'd our unit count, we more than doubled our cash flow, and we have additional equity. All right, so how did I do this? So as Lika had said, that's what our company specializes in. Even though we're based in Seattle, we're a real estate brokerage based in Seattle, we primarily do business out of state. So the first step in out-of-state investing is to decide where you want to invest. So that starts with market research. And so, for us as a company, that's what we do. We look at population trends, we look at job growth, we look at wage growth. We do like to see some level of appreciation. I think it's good to have a healthy balance between cash flow and appreciation. So we look for markets that have all of that and that offer, high cash on cash returns. So we're looking for double-digit returns on the cash on cash for these markets. Number two, it's great to find a market that has good deals, but if you don't have the right team in place, then it might not go well. So building a team can be a challenge. We're about 2 years into kind of creating the deal flow that we have with agents in about 26 different markets. But, you know, we look for agents that are investor savvy, so they know how to find, you know, on and off market deals. They have an idea of, you know, what the estimated renovations would look like. They have an idea of what after renovated rents might look like. And then of course, ARV on, you know, something that you're doing a BRRR strategy on. So building the team can take time. We've got, again, 26 different markets we have teams already in that are already sourcing deals. Number 3 is, so of course I ran a return on equity on the property that I was exchanging. So a lot of times investors ask, how do you know when you should sell and when you should either do a cash out refinance or do a HELOC? And so for me, the decision to sell that brand new duplex that we had just built was the concern that the rents were not recession proof. So again, we were getting $2,500 or $2,400 a month per unit. But I just kind of had this feeling that if anything were to go wrong with the economy, or if we, you know, had going into a recession, those would be hard to pay rents. I think that the rents would potentially have gone down. And so for us, you know, we want to focus on, you know, we like the 2-bed, 1-bath. It's going to be anywhere from like $800 to say $1,500 a month in rent per unit, because that can be affordable for, you know, no matter what's happening in the economy. I got started in 2007, which was not the greatest time to be starting out in real estate. Even for the first couple of years, I mean, about 25% of our tenants were on unemployment. But because the rents were affordable, they were able to pay the rents even on unemployment. So we're kind of starting to see those things play out, you know, with COVID-19 and this looming recession. But, you know, that's something to look at moving forward is, are the current rentals in your portfolio recession proof? The other thing too is we were not getting a great return on equity. So we still had equity left into the property, even though we had done that cash out refinance. And so, you know, just being able to turn that equity into 10 units as opposed to 2 for us was a no-brainer. We talked about, you know, non-recession proof investments. The other thing too is kind of, you know, weighing on me is, you know, we have a lot of units in Washington. And in Washington, you know, we're dealing with eviction bans, we're dealing with rent increase freezes. And just today, you know, we got some rent increases done in Tennessee, right? So other states don't necessarily have the same limitations that we have in, you know, Washington or even, you know, mostly on the West Coast. All right, so again, why out of state? So, you know, like most of you, I'm based in the West Coast. We've done everything from spec home building, fix and flips, buying at the courthouse steps. And for the last couple of years, we've just been starting to move things out of state. We still love our portfolio in Washington. You know, we're getting great appreciation, great cash flow for properties that we bought years ago. But we're able to really get, you know, nicer properties, you know, better on the price per unit out of state in markets that we believe people are going to be moving to in the future. The other thing too is by investing out of state, we found that it's actually saved us time, which sounds a little strange, but in Washington, we find that we're more active on the properties that are close to us, whereas out of state, we're forced to use, of course, you know, property management and pay for all renovations, you know, with a local team. So for us, we say, you know, live where you want, invest where the numbers make the most sense. So if you guys have questions about out-of-state investing, you can email me. It's hello@agentsinvest.com.
Thank you, Jennifer. Go ahead and just type in your email in the chat box. And we'll,
absolutely.
Thank you. That was amazing. And that was fast. Okay. So next speaker is Hornbuckle. I met Lo at an assisted living conference I attended last year. And Lo was literally my favorite speaker because he was just not afraid to tell it like it was. Today, he's going to share with us his thoughts on senior living, which is such a huge need in our country going into the next decade or so. This is an asset class that I highly encourage all of us as investors to be seriously thinking about investing in because there's a need. Take it away, Lo.
I think I was a little off-put by the fact that you found a Halloween costume from 2009. So that was a great costume, by the way. I could probably just scrap the whole presentation and talk about that if you'd like. anyway, that was me dressed up as a Mormon. I got the distinct opportunity to go to the church to get a copy of the Book of Mormon. That was a really fun experience. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. One of the questions that came in the chat box was how we're handling COVID, which is funny because the entire presentation is about that. So that is good. That is good work. The premise right now of the presentation really centers around the fact that the pandemic has really affected the elderly significantly. Also, people that already have pre-existing conditions, which you can't really describe a more perfect environment for the pandemic to just wreak havoc as an assisted living facility, a memory care facility. You have older people, people with pre-existing conditions. So the whole crux of the presentation really centers around the fact that big buildings are struggling mightily. The crux of the issue really is that to put this very simply, what we focus on is we focus on very small boutique environments. And if you think about the biggest challenge with COVID as compared to some other things is that it spreads asymptomatically and pre-symptomatically. And so that makes a huge impact. The thing to understand is that first off, I always try to bracket the conversation. We want to acknowledge the human toll, just because, when we're going to talk about things like business and effectively dealing with the pandemic, we can't really do that without dealing with the fact that, look, approximately 150,000 Americans are dead. 5 million people have been infected. The first and second order effects of this pandemic could last a long time, in some cases generations. As I mentioned before, senior care facilities, places where older folks that have pre-existing conditions congregate, it's exactly what assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing look like. And what's going to happen is this. Imagine 2 years from now or a year from now, when you're making a decision about putting mom or dad or your grandparents or a loved one into an assisted living facility. These 100-bed, 200-bed, 300-bed facilities have really, really not fared very well in COVID, and they will continue not to do so because every time, they let a staff member through the door, it's a chance for asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic transmission of the virus. So what's going to happen is a couple things are going to take place in the industry. So the first is that this is an article that kind of talks about how basically senior living is going to change into a sort of a small house model. And the other article is kind of a little bit different and goes to the point of how COVID-19 is going to end big box senior living. There's some huge advantages. And so since this presentation was really kind of geared toward talking about the perspective of investment, my recommendation is that you invest wisely, you invest small, you invest boutique. And here's the reason. If you were to go plunk down some money and invest in a 100-bed or 200-bed facility, the concern that I would have is that they've proven they don't have very good measures for infection control, right? A lot of the story coming out of a lot of the hot spots have been nursing home deaths, long-term care deaths, things like that. When you have a small facility, you have per building, so it reduces the chance of transmission. In a typical facility of mine, I might have 6 to 8 employees, whereas a big building might have 100 employees. You could imagine then the math would be, they have 100 chances a day for asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic transmission. We have 6, right? That math's pretty powerful. And what we know is that once you have it come into the building, it's very bad. But there are ways to triage the situation if you have the right setup. So the first thing is you got a lot of staff per resident. Kind of think about this for a second. You have a person that has dementia. Say they like to wander. Now they get sick. Imagine that's a nightmare scenario. Imagine how difficult that is to deal with in an environment that has a 1-to-10, 1-to-12 ratio of staff to residents, right? They don't have the ability to keep that resident in their room. They don't have the ability for that person basically to run around the facility and be a huge vector. The other thing is that if you think about the physical layout of smaller facilities, most of them are single story. And so it's very easy to do window visits. It's very easy to involve technology. We do a lot of that stuff now, whereas in a bigger facility, you may not have that option. You've got elevators. Sometimes they're in situations where you really can't do that. The other focus on what we try to do is private bedrooms with attached private bathrooms. Some of the best advice is if you're going to make a sick room, like if you're going to do this in your home or do this in a facility, you'd like to have everything they need kind of self-contained in the room. And that obviously means bathrooms. So the idea would be basically if someone were to get sick, then you could keep them in their room. You could bring food to the door, but they wouldn't necessarily have to leave the room. And so you can obviously have a better outcome if you have an outbreak inside of a facility. As a side note, none of my residents in Dallas have gotten COVID. It's been a real source of pride for us, despite the fact that Dallas has had some really terrible numbers. The other thing that's really important is strong medical oversight. So if you're going to invest in a facility, you want to make sure they have, either a medical director or a strong nursing team. Many states don't require you to have a nurse in an assisted living or a memory care environment. And so it's kind of an added bonus to have someone that's very familiar with infection control and kind of help keep the residents safe. So the gist of all this is basically that it's okay to invest in senior housing, even in a difficult time, but you want to invest in the right types of senior housing. So we were kind of fortunate. We kind of thought that our type of model, where it's smaller facilities, was going to be more attractive in the long run, but COVID has sort of accelerated that trend, which is what those couple of articles that I mentioned. I've written a book about our company. You can go to our website, throw in your name and email address, and we'll give you a copy of it. Kind of walks through the story of our company so you can kind of understand how we take the approach that we do in terms of trying to keep people safe and how we focus on great care, great food, great communication. I know we're running out of time, so feel free to throw some questions in the chat box for the breakout room.
Thank you, Lo. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so next up, we have AJ Osbourne. I met AJ at a mastermind at Brandon Turner's home last year. Within minutes of chatting with him, I was so captivated by his story of how he overcame a near-death experience less than 2 years ago to now owning and operating a 1.2 million square feet of self-storage. AJ also published his first book, The Investor's Guide to Growing Wealth in Self-Storage. I actually have it on my desk because I'm going to read it, and it just came. Thank you. And it's a step-by-step playbook on this asset class. AJ, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. So self-storage, I'm a self-storage nut. I love the asset class. I think it's the #1 commercial asset class for anyone looking at getting into the real estate world. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, which I'm going to dive into and I want to talk about. So we own over 1.2 million square feet, over 100 million in assets across 5-6 states. And when looking at kind of the landscape of self-storage and everything, it has performed better than almost any real estate asset class over the last 20 years, and it continues to be successful. There's a lot of reasons for this. Self-storage, it's young. It's not an industry that is really matured like so many of the industries, and it has some unique opportunities to investors, very small investors, including to get started in it and to grow a portfolio extremely quickly. Let's see if I can keep moving through these slides here. So there's a lot of fun things here. The thing about self-storage that most people realize is it is more of a business than anything. And it provides opportunities to be completely hands-off, but there tends to be a value spread in self-storage that I haven't seen in hotels or any other commercial asset class. And you can also get started small and scale quickly. It's a huge industry. The number of storage facilities are over 50,000. The industry continues to grow massively. People are more and more excited about it. But the key for investors are the industry is consolidating, and it's consolidating fairly quickly. It really is a adolescent, so to speak, in the investing world. It's the newest real estate asset class, commercial real estate asset class, but it's kind of gone through some changes. All those changes are great. 73% are owned by individual mom and pop operators. That's changed a lot in the last 10 years, and it's starting to consolidate. Self-storage is an asset class that I can go in. I can find amazing deals in small markets, big markets. I can turn around facilities. And although in first tier, huge markets, yeah, there's a lot of competition. I'm in lots of markets where there's really no competition. And we can go in and put these things under contract. We can do seller financing. My first facilities were all small. They were all, $500,000 small facilities and places, and it allowed me to kind of figure out and understand it. But really the key to self-storage is there's all these value really levers, as I like to call them. Let me kind of explain this. So when you buy storage facilities, the operations of storage facilities, a lot of them can be automated and controlled, but it's not like apartment buildings or other asset classes where the market demands set prices for set, units. Not all 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom on the same block sell. In fact, that's not true at all. The prices vary widely. And the best way to kind of show and explain this and how we were able to get to over 100 million in assets so quickly is just taking advantage of the spread. It's taking advantage of, I don't even want to say turn around, because as this case study here shows, we didn't really turn around anything. We picked up this asset, and this was later on after we kind of built and grew up. But this asset was 4.8 million when we picked it up. We put 150,000 into the office. 4 months later, we had grown the revenue by multiple times, and it was worth 7 million. We had all our money back, and we were receiving a 35-40% cash on cash return. And this is in a major market in the United States that had just been overlooked. The value in 3 years is somewhere around 10 million. All we did is we focused on a few things. We focused on pricing discrepancy. We focused on creating a great marketing strategy to get people in. And we used things like dynamic pricing. So not all 10 by 10s or 5 by 5s, not all the space is the same, right? So as demand rises and fluctuates, you can get people in, and then you can do add-on products. I can add on insurance, boxes, sales, right? And then after we kind of play with the numbers and we play with rates, we set our processes and systems up, and we let our manager take care of it, and we walk away. And then we take our money out, it pays us cash forever. We rinse and repeat. It doesn't have long-term contracts. Now, before 2008, everybody said self-storage was dangerous. Banks didn't even like to really finance them because they're like, it's month to month and nobody needs self-storage, right? That was also the same time that they said housing prices would never go down, because why would someone pay for a storage unit when they could pay for their house? Well, what they forget to think about is that $50, nobody cares about. When I give somebody a 20% increase on $50, they don't even pick up the phone to call. So on our gross revenue, it's astronomically large, and it has a huge value creation aspect to it. But to the customers, they're not moving out. They don't really go anywhere. And if they do, we replace them like that. It's super easy to get people in and out. That allows us to use these levers and to implement them fast. We don't look at things in multi-year, right? I want all my money out in 2 years, 3 years at the latest, depending on the project size, everything. And I want a 20% cash on cash return, or I don't even look at it. And self-storage has the inventory and the runway to do it. There's so many of them. They're everywhere. There's so many mom and pops facilities that we are under, and you can do new build, conversions. We buy bankrupt super Kmarts. We're under contract in 6 properties right now. We're closing 95,000 square foot one in Kansas City in the next 2 weeks. There's so many, and these are all off market deals. We've never bought a deal on market ever. We're just either talking to people, networking, or having brokers come in and bring them to us. And so unlike a lot of asset classes that I felt, first of all, were logistically a nightmare, I didn't understand. I'm not that smart of a guy. And so I thought I needed something that was simple, had great fundamentals, that had a value spread that was large enough to create a margin of safety for me. So when I screw up, because I'm an idiot, I'm okay, right? And that I could do it quickly. That was my criteria, because I was never in real estate. I was actually a sales guy, sold insurance. So real estate for me was something I didn't really understand. I didn't want toilets. I didn't want logistics. I didn't want things like that. And self-storage not only offered me the ability and opportunity to invest in real estate without all these complicated, huge capital expenditures. I put 100,000 into our first one. That 100,000 within 4 years, we turned into 5 million, and the cash flow on it was 4 times that 100,000. And that's why I love this asset class. You can start small, grow quickly, go big, and it's easy to define that value spread, or as I call it, money on the table. I look at an asset, I can see the money on the table. I just have to buy it and take the money off the table. and then I move on to the next one. So yeah, hope that gives you a nice little clip into self-storage and what we do.
All right, Sean Katona.
This
That's
is funny.
my guy.
Yeah, no one's seen the pictures that you chose. I love it.
It pays to be friends with all of you on Facebook. So I've known Sean since I first started investing in real estate back in 2014. He was my very first mentor, inspired me endlessly back then, continues to inspire me today. He seamlessly somehow made the shift from investing in residential real estate to commercial real estate, and he now flips shopping centers. No big deal. Take over, Sean.
All right, I'm putting 5 minutes on the clock. See if I can do this. We'll fly through it.
I want to see this happen because he has 26 slides.
But I can go fast. So
okay.
This is the program, guys.
Challenge on. Challenge on.
Let's do it. As Leica mentioned, my background is residential, fix, flip, wholesale, rentals, done new construction. And I kind of take a look back at my 20+ million in acquisitions and 70 some deals, and I was like, what could I do to do better, than what I've done so far? There's a lot of lessons learned the hard way, and really what I was looking for was more freedom. So time and money, some combination of those two things. That led me to commercial real estate. So basically bigger deals with better economies of scale. And the model was, look, I'm gonna partner up with friends and colleagues, and we're gonna buy better quality things, and we'll own them together. And so I look today for unicorn type of deals where I can get superior returns, where our entire ownership group can have a turnkey ownership experience, because I became an adult babysitter of contractors in the residential world. And then deals that I can do strategic timing on, both the deal itself and in the market with what's going on right now. So a couple of things that we can do to force superior returns that I think are interesting. Buy bigger. We can afford better contractors, better property managers, better software systems, better everything. So this deal that I'm looking at here is a $2 million one we did in Phoenix, Arizona. It was half vacant when we bought it. So significant upside, double the income, roughly double the value of the building. I like buying off market. This one was brought to me by a broker. It was also seller finance. So it was nice to be able to get in, positively cash flow from day one, and then add value to the property as we went along. I look for deals with durable tenant streams. So you guys probably hear, JCPenney's and Sears going bankrupt. We're thinking more daily needs, right? Nail salons, dog groomers, barber shops, and not just internet resistant now, but pandemic resistance has become an important thing to think about when we're buying. So when I put all those together, what makes a deal interesting is kind of having all of these at the same time. And so if it's got these characteristics, it's got my attention. Now, I'll still pass on 98 out of 100 deals probably, but what's unique about this asset class, and it's commercial, it's retail too, we get the cash flows like you would on a rental. We can force appreciation by filling vacancy or decreasing expenses. We've got tenants helping to pay down our loan. And then the tax advantages are phenomenal. Think extra comma and more zeros behind the cost segregation studies or the depreciation that you can get. So for any owners of the projects that go into deals with us, they're really shielded from a lot of the day-to-day or hand-to-hand combat is kind of, I think of it, the 10-year learning curve, the jack of all trades thing that I kind of went through as a mom and pop investor, working with the tenants, the contractors. So really, successful investors or busy professionals can keep doing what they do best and really let, the operator do the active things and the investors make money passively, which has become more and more important to me as time goes on. So the folks who've invested with me really have a nice curated experience. I professionally underwrite them. We go get things like third-party reports. They get monthly reporting, local management. It's like all the things that I didn't have in my residential portfolio or in house flipping kind of became the thing. And there's some amazing opportunities when you do bigger deals. A couple of my investors who are surprised by the results that we experienced. This is a deal that we bought for $2 million and sold for $4.9 million in about a 14-month span. And so that $2.5 million of profit was split up proportionally with the whole ownership group. on top of the cash flow and the monthly pay downs and the tax savings. So a lot of fun things. And we're just in a unique opportunity right now with the market. I mean, it feels like a tsunami of opportunity, the perfect storm, because we've got loans maturing. Some people aren't going to be able to refinance out of those deals. A whole lot of fallout. Like there is a cleansing of, you know, categories right now and retailers and business owners who are already weak to begin with. And I'm in kind of a contrarian category. I don't exclusively do shopping centers, but it's just been a hit lately, and it's going to get even better because it's a category that's taking a beating. So I expect some of the deepest discounts to come from that sector. And, you know, as I kind of think about all those things together, it starts to feel like kind of the ultimate investment vehicle, at least when I, you know, compare that to stocks or bonds or mutual funds or kind of mom and pop in the rental world. It's pretty special. And so I'm almost done. That's it for me. Happy to answer any questions that you guys have got. If you jump out to my website, I've got a cool bunch of resources that you can check out, kind of an investor toolbox. And for anyone, you know, curious about investing with me, there's a wait list, simplifiedproperties.com. I'll type it in the search box.
In the chat box.
There you go.
Thank you, Sean. That was awesome. And you did it. 5 minutes. Amazing. Okay. Next, we have Jerome Myers in the house. Jerome is a force to be reckoned with. He started investing in multifamily about 5 years ago and currently owns 90 doors in North Carolina. He's always willing to help, mentor, and teach. In fact, he's currently joining us while on vacation. So thank you for being here, Jerome. We appreciate you. And he's going to teach us a thing or two about multifamily investing. So take it away.
So here we go. So why multifamily investing? Why now? Equity through leverage. I think everybody can tap that. Assets through appreciation in value, but depreciation from taxation. What's that mean? The property goes up in value, but you can take the depreciation on it and end up having cash flow without taxes. I'm not sure that everybody can depreciate the way multifamily can, so I'm gonna put a checkbox there for us. Cash flow is big in multifamily, especially when you compare it to single family. The millennials are placing strong demand on rental properties, and you're actually seeing some of that from the baby boomers as well. There's a crisis in the country for workforce housing, and that's where we really focus. And that allows us to have high cash on cash returns, among other things. And all right, so who owns multifamily? I tier it into 3 different categories. Independent operators, that would be people who aren't formally organized and are out there kind of mom and pop. Syndication groups, and if you think about the educators around the country, there's probably 5 or 6 big ones who drive most of the traffic throughout the country. And then institutional, and those are going to be like Blackstone and some of those other REITs. And I just put that in to let you know that independent operators are people who own these things. So just because you drive by an apartment building doesn't mean that you can't have one. A lot of people are either trying to put a whole lot of money into an account called a 401k or some other individual retirement account, and then they're going to pull off of that when they get into retirement. Other people are trying to buy 10 residential homes, and then they want to have that cash flow. And so, you know, buy 10 homes, pay them off. And I say do an alternative where you can buy multifamily, trade up, and get really high leverage on those, because the multifamily is set up to be a business. It just happens to have real estate tied to it. So you can get that 70 to 80% leverage, unlike any other business that doesn't have real estate attached to it. Once you buy that building, you want to improve the operations. You can get rewarded for your contribution if you actually execute the business plan. And this is the big difference between single family and multifamily. The execution of your business plan is going to dictate whether or not you make money. With single family, you can buy it like a stock, buy it low, sell it high. With these, you actually have to operate in order to get rewarded. So getting into multifamily, I think there are 4 challenges: knowledge, deal flow, experience, and capital. And I think you have to solve them in that order. Just because you don't have capital doesn't mean that you shouldn't spend your time getting educated. Once you're educated, you can analyze leads and decide which one's a deal. And then from the deal, you go find an experienced person to partner with you so you can get that great low interest rate bank financing. And then that experienced partner usually can bring capital to your deal. And that is how you get your first deal done. That's the way I got mine done. And that's the way we teach people in our 30-hour session. The advantages of multifamily, again, just running through them. higher monthly cash flow, especially compared to single family, more granularity on a vacancy. You think about a single family home where you are, you got 0 or 100% occupancy or vacancy, depending on how you want to look at it. You got a 10 unit, one person moves out, you still 90% occupied. You have a 100 unit building, one person moves out, that's 99% occupancy. That's amazing, guys. You can scale faster. I did 36 units last year. I'm probably going to do a whole lot more this year and next. You can control the value through your operations, right? So when you execute your business plan, as long as you drive your net operating income up, the value of your property is going to go up. You got the benefits of economy of scales, and a lot of times it's easier to finance. Then my last slide, what's the challenges? Entry costs and a longer sales cycle. Why does this matter? You want to build a moat around your business. If everybody can't do it, for instance, wholesaling, right? You don't really need any money or experience to get into wholesaling. You're not competing with everybody if you're operating at a higher level. And so that's why we really like the multifamily. These cons keep the Joe Blows from being in the game and allows us to go at a much faster pace and a higher level. And I think that is the end. And I still have like 30 seconds left.
That's awesome. Good job. So next up, we have Brad St. Onge. Brad and I met at one of my meetups last year, and I was instantly smitten by his good looks and charm. Just kidding. What I love about Brad is his ability to think outside the box, and I'm constantly learning from him. As Director of Customer Success for InvestNext, Brad works hand in hand with syndicators to help them efficiently manage their investor base, all while simplifying the process of fundraising. He himself has raised over $30 million in capital in the last 5 years. All yours, Brad.
Thanks, Leica. That's my hole-in-one. I got that a couple months ago, I think. So I was pretty happy with that. But
good job.
Thank you. So like Leica was saying, for about 5 years, I ran 2 different investor relations departments for different syndicators. One was out of Michigan, and then one was out of Washington. That's where I met Leica, Nee, in the meetup group out there. So, which was awesome. But during that time, I was able to grow our investor base from one company had about a little over 200. I was able to grow it up to about 400, and during that raised a little north of 32 million over that time. So I was able to learn a lot about syndications, about investor relations, and then I got with InvestNext, who was one of the portals that we used to help me raise money when I was doing it for the investment side of it, and had the opportunity to jump ship and kind of join that side at the beginning of the year. So I ended up swapping over and helping them. So I run now the customer success department there and help cater the platform to help syndicators, newer syndicators, use it to be more beneficial. So it helps you get rid of like Excel spreadsheets, et cetera, stuff like that. So, but we'll kind of talk about syndications here and just some of the stuff I see, because I deal with a lot of syndicators that we work with, how they, the PPMs, all this stuff. So it's just some minor things I see that maybe people could take as they're starting their syndication. So let's start basically. What is a syndication? So essentially it's, a partnership between several investors where you're combining either your skill sets, your capital, whatever resources you have, and you're just pulling them together to purchase or manage a property that you may not be able to buy on your own. So some of the key players in it, the LPs, limited partners, and the general partners, so it's the sponsors. The LPs are your investors, GPs that sponsor the syndicator. Why would an LP invest in syndication? I think mostly everyone's gone over these answers to some of these questions at this point. So these are mostly professionals you're dealing with, so doctors, higher level. Obviously, you need a certain amount of income or net worth to invest in these 506c deals. So they have limited time, limited resources. They're not real estate experts, so they're just counting on you to give them their money to you and then have you help grow their asset base. So what types of deals? There's tons of different deals. These are typically the ones we see on our platform, or the ones I've worked with. So land entitlement, ground up development, a lot of development deals we've done in the past. Value adds, you're buying, you're purchasing a multifamily, and then you're trying to create density within that multifamily you got. So you buy 30 unit, but you maybe will turn that, flip that into like a 38 unit, stuff like that. Risk level, and how does it impact my return? So obviously with, as you kind of look at that little small list I've got there, the land entitlement, there's going to be more risk for that. And then less as you go down. So if you're doing value add, probably not as much as a land entitlement, because you've got to go through that whole entitlement process. Ground up development, a little bit more risk there. But typically, as you see and you run across some of these prospectus from the sponsors, you'll get higher returns based off that risk. So usually the riskier the deal, the higher the return. But as you've seen from, I think, AJ's, some of those, which I'm not too familiar with the storage, but doesn't seem like much risk there and a pretty good return there. So, but I guess it's all risk is proportionate to knowledge. So as long as you vet the syndicator and you know that they're, you can trust them, then, I don't think there's much risk as long as you've got their back. So one of my bosses used to always say, do the work once, get paid forever, which is kind of an interesting saying. He used to say that to everyone. So basically you vet the syndicator, go and do your deep dive right off the bat, syndicate, and then at least down if they have deals down the road, you've already vetted them, and you should be able to trust the next one. So at least makes it less questions as you go down as they start adding more properties to the fight. But so here's a few common mistakes that I see on the platform. Like I said, I deal with anywhere from we've got syndicators that I work with that have 50 plus properties to a couple that have one or two on the platform. But I'll see as I'm helping them put their info in the system or go through everything, I've seen their last few deals, and part of their operating agreement is they may have got their split too low, so they may have been only giving themselves 7.5%. The second deal they're giving themselves 10%, 15%, and they're giving 20%. Well, their investors then look at that and say, why are you now adding this your split portion of it? So I've seen this a lot. So I think pay yourself. You guys are the ones that are going into meetups. You're the ones doing these classes. You're the ones probably buying single family, then going to multifamily. So you're earning all that. So by all means, you should at least get your 20%, 30%, whatever you're going to do. So definitely don't shortchange yourself. I see that all the time when we start adding these properties in, and then they don't bake in enough fees. So when I ran some investor relations departments, I would go on these crowdfunding sites and I would pull up as many PPMs, operating agreements as I could. I'd dive in through it. I'd look right for the fees and see what everyone was doing. So I was doing my own market research where I'd go through and say, all right, what is the, what is the asset management fee for them? What's the guarantee fee? What's the construction fee? I'd go through all this stuff. And then just make sure that we were on board and we weren't, overcharging, and that we were still staying competitive. So we weren't undercharging for stuff that we should get charged for. So I could probably talk on and on about some stuff that I see, but I think my 5 minutes is up. And so I'll throw my email in the chat. If you guys have any questions about investor relations or syndication, stuff like that, feel free to hit me up and I can give you my 2 cents on that. So.
Thank you, Brad. That was awesome. All right. Next up, we have Lwin. Kekoa is a little rock star. He does everything. He owns a lending company, a real estate brokerage, a property management company, a construction company, and a real estate investment firm. So jack of many trades, master of all. So he's definitely a good friend to have. He's going to share with us an overview of the different lending resources available for an investor. Go for it, Kekoa.
I think I'm a good friend to have just because you and I like eating ramen together. So we just hang out and ramen and Japanese food, which is awesome. I'll eat anytime.
Awesome.
That's Huckleberry Pie, by the way. If you're ever in the border between Idaho and Montana, there's a place called St. Regis. Amazing Huckleberry Pie, milkshakes, ice cream, etc. So
I saw that. I was so jealous.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was great. But yeah, so we get a chance really quick to talk about money. And money is always a fun topic because you've heard a lot of different opportunities, shopping centers, adult family homes, fix and flips. Unless you're rich like Jared and you can self-fund everything, the rest of us, we don't have drug companies. We don't have, huge bank rolls. So we got to find money to do some of these deals. And as we know, there's great money in real estate, but sometimes it takes some money to get rolling. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the financing options all in a few moments. Okay, so our background, Leica told you about a number of different companies. We started off with fix and flip. We've done a couple hundred fix and flips in Hawaii, Washington, and Vegas. And then we kind of moved into a number of other businesses, all kind of vertically integrated. Bottom line is every single one of the businesses and all of our fix and flips and all of our buy and holds, everything requires money. And so next slide just talks a little bit about some of your financing resources that you might have. If you're kind of new to real estate investing, I'd say look up something called the BRRRR investing. Buy something that you can live in. FHA has an amazing program for that where you can live in a unit and rent out the other 3. That's conventional lending. Great way to start if you kind of are getting started. Great opportunity there. But then if you're going to kind of go beyond owner-occupied investing, then that's where some of the other resources are really great. Some of us have heard about hard money, private money, JV partnerships. And then we do something called Dequity, which is a little bit unique. So the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about hard money. If you're brand new to the space, hard money basically is secured against the hard asset. That's why it's called hard money. It's also called hard money because it's hard. Interest rates are high, 10 to 15% right now during COVID. But some things to kind of be aware of when you're looking at hard money. There's tons of hard money lenders out there. Sometimes it doesn't matter exactly what their rates are. Find somebody who's on your power team that's going to be a friend. Somebody that over time you just text them and say, hey, I found a deal, need some money, and they're going to do everything they can to help get you the finances. We have a hard money company, but there are tons of other great ones as well. Just find somebody you trust, somebody you want to work with. But get to know some of the key terms: loan to value, loan to cost, get to know interest rates, how many points was it going to take because that's out of pocket. Is it Dutch or non-Dutch? Meaning, are you going to be paying interest the minute that you get the loan on your draws or your construction budget, or are you not? Get to know that. Recourse or non-recourse. Obviously non-recourse, which means that they won't go after your personal assets, but only the asset that you're getting a loan for. That's a better loan. So lots of those terms, if you're new to investing, is going to sound foreign. Take a snapshot and then definitely do some research on that. Help answer any questions as well. My email's in the chat. But next slide kind of goes a little bit farther. If hard money is not the best option for you, then private money or both is another great option. Private money is approaching people like Jared, who's rich, or Leica, who's got all kinds of contacts all over the world, and saying, hey, I've got a gap in funding, so I need a down payment, I need to pay origination points, I got to pay for some draw requests up front. And so that is money that you just kind of talk to somebody that's got some money or a family member, and they'll come in, and sometimes what they'll do is give you a private loan. Sometimes there's no monthly payments. Sometimes you can add monthly payments. Interest rate can be 10 to 12%. Sometimes there's no points, which is great. But they're usually second position after your first position, hard money or conventional money. So that's kind of a cool option for folks that are looking to try to do real estate investing without any money out of your own pocket. A lot of the houses that we're buying right now, we don't spend any of our money. It's all somebody else's money that we invest, and then we make money, and then we pay them back, and then they rinse and repeat. Investing fundamentals, when you're going private money lending, when you tell Leica, hey, I want to borrow some money, she's going to ask, what's my security? And you tell her, well, it's the property, and it's my reputation, and it's my great looks. And so therefore, you should invest with me. So the risk that a private lender is going to take is largely tied to how good of a deal. So the better the deal, the easier it is to find private lending. And what's their return? Typically, private investors are going to want at least 10%, if not more. I usually ask for 15% when I private lend. So that would be the fun part of doing private lending, is kind of creating a partnership with the person that you're talking to and creating a custom investment opportunity for them. Sources of private money, lots of different sources. You can take a look at that later. JV partnerships, definitely. We've talked a lot about different people that are on this call, but find somebody that you trust and somebody that you can partner with. Final thing is Dequity. That's a really cool thing that if you don't do this now, you can talk to a private lender and you can say something like, hey, I'm going to give you the better of an interest rate or equity at the end of this deal. Which would you like? So kind of a creative way to give them a little bit of some excitement in the project, but then it also gives them an opportunity to have a higher return. So a lot of private lenders typically like something like that. So that's basically it when it comes to financing. Just be real careful not to over leverage. Sometimes it's really easy to find money. But sometimes more money doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to manage. So definitely be careful on that. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, the email address was there on the chat. So good luck and go find some money.
Thank you, Kekoa. The best advice I've ever been given is not to over leverage. So great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony Scandariato. So he is the host of the popular podcast, Discovering Multifamily. He teaches others how to become financially free through multifamily investing by offering a ton of free content on his website, redknightproperties.com. He's going to teach us about how to effectively create a podcast. Kekoa, listen up. Because Kekoa wants to create a podcast with me.
With Leica. But she's making me buy her dinner first. Can't afford it.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is a very simple, I only have a couple slides, but I'll kind of talk in high level and in detail here. So I'm Anthony Scandariato, one of the hosts of Discovering Multifamily podcast on iTunes, Stitcher. You can find it pretty much anywhere. And I kind of wanted to explain to the audience, if you're thinking about starting a podcast and you think it's too much time, it's really not, as long as you have a system in place, which I'll explain how I do it. This is the only slide I have, so I'm just going to explain how I do it. And we got to maybe 60 episodes in really like a month and a half, 2 months, and with all pretty good content. It's getting pretty up there in the iTunes rankings. So the question you have to ask yourself, if you're going to start a podcast, what's the general theme? What kind of message are you trying to convey? And are you going to self-produce it or outsource it? So I would recommend potentially self-producing for the first maybe 10 or so episodes. And then if you start to get some traction and you really like doing it, at least putting the content out there, you could potentially outsource it to a VA to at least help you with the post-production editing, from graphics to your social media posts, to your iTunes descriptions, to blasting it on every single platform. Now you can use that through websites like Upwork.com, which I just put in the chat, as well as Fiverr.com, which I also just put in the chat. You can literally get someone to write you your podcast intro, your middle intro, and your outro for $40. So I recommend, that's what I did. I recommend at least starting out with that. There's very minimal investment to start the podcast. I'd also recommend getting a quality microphone. I have I don't know where it's not here right now. A high quality Samsung microphone. I'm not using it right now, you can probably tell, but I generally use it for my shows, and it was only $30 on Amazon, and really nobody knows the difference. At least people, because I like to get feedback too and ask how my quality is. So the next step would be to, if you're going to self-produce it, you don't want to use a VA for your first few episodes, because it could get pricey. So some people price it out per episode. Some people give you a monthly subscription. If you want to just do it yourself, I'd recommend picking a hosting platform like Buzzsprout, which is the one that I use. Buzzsprout is, I think it's like $15 or $20 a month for 24 hours a month for actual content you can put out. So it's a whole, basically hosting platform. Put your podcast on there. And the way that I do it, or I used to do it before the VA, if you want to start out and do your own, you have a Zoom call with the guest, and there's a lot of ways to find awesome podcast guests. Obviously, you want to start with your network, and you want to have guests relatable to your audience and the message you're trying to convey. But there are a lot of websites. There's one called, guess what? It's called podcastguests.com. I believe that's what it's called. Just go to Google and type in podcast guests, and I can guarantee you there's probably 5 people on this meeting that are on that as guests you can book, including Brad. I think you're one of them, right? So you can find some really good quality guests just from that, and as long as they think you're a good fit for your show. So I literally, would go on and reach out to, there might be a list. You type in real estate, there might be 200 people. What I did when I first started the podcast, I just reach out to everybody, and then whoever gets back to me, if I think is a good fit, they'll come on the show. So it takes a little bit of time, and maybe that's not the best way to do it, but you want to have some consistency. So if you want to do a podcast, you want to do one, then I would go for that. The one thing that works for me, and also for guys like Joe Fairless that do podcasts daily, Whitney Sewell, they set a day, like their Monday is all podcast day. So they'll record 15 shows on a Monday, and that'll be their day. But then they have content for 2 weeks. So make sure you pick a day and really stick to it if you really want to do this podcast, because, like today I recorded 6 shows. So I have content for the next probably week to 2 weeks. Because it's, it can get really overwhelming. So pick a day, pick your schedule, be consistent. After you do every show, definitely tell your guests to rate and rank you on iTunes, because it helps you rank in Google as well. It helps the guest also rank even more themselves. And you can, like I said, as long as it's on platforms like Buzzsprout, it'll go to iTunes, it'll go to Google Play, it'll go to Stitcher, it'll go to Spotify. It'll be on every platform. So pick your hosting platform. If you're going to record a Zoom call of you with, a conversation with me, and let's say Leica, for example, you can record it. After that, there's a program called Audacity, which I just put in I only sent it to Alex Chin. Audacity is the one that I use to mix the intros and then the content and then the outros. It literally would take me maybe 10 minutes a day if I'm posting an episode to mix it all together. So download Audacity if you're trying to do it yourself. Buzzsprout for the hosting platform. And then obviously Zoom, which we're on now. That definitely helps to start out. But consistency is key. Definitely try to get a green screen. I'm not showing one right now, but I do have one. You could pick one up at like Best Buy for like $15. But like I said, it's really integral to help grow your business in any capacity. I'm in the multifamily investing business, and podcasting isn't my business. I mean, it just isn't. I don't love it, but I do like it. And it definitely gives me an opportunity to meet a lot of different people like Brad and Leica. So I definitely recommend it for any line of business if you're trying to expand. So I hope that helps, and hopefully it was honest.
That was great. Thank you, Anthony. Kekoa and I are coming to you for lessons.
That's right. We're starting next week.
Yeah.
10 a day.
Okay, next up we have Daniel Holmlund, Mr. Spock. Okay, so he is a software engineer at Intel and started investing in multifamily in 2018. He is host of the Think Multifamily podcast, where he interviews some pretty awesome people. He interviewed me last month, so he has good taste. Anyway, he also does something unique where he empowers colleagues at Intel to invest in real estate by hosting a real estate investment club just for Intel employees. That was so cool too. I got to present last week. There were like 200 employees, all full-time jobs, but then they also get to come out and invest in real estate part-time. So Daniel, what Daniel's gonna do is he's gonna take us through emerging markets during COVID. I'm excited to listen to this one. Take it away, Daniel.
Thank you for having me here, and thank you to everybody. I thought I was going to take the cake for having the most number of slides, but Sean beat me out to it.
Sean beat you.
So 15 seconds a slide for 20 slides. Here we go. First thing that I wanted to show you is the map of resilient areas and cities, just to let you know that real estate is hyper-local. And that is to mean that when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what's a good area to invest in? Usually just giving your opinion about an area isn't really a good way to go about picking a market. What you want to be able to do is know your criteria for qualifying an area. That way, when you are narrowing in on where you want to invest, you can know your criteria and you can qualify the particular area. Real estate's hyper-local. It can be different depending on what block of the city you're on. And so talking about it in terms of data and macroeconomic trends is the best way to go about qualifying where you can go invest. And so let's go over some of the high-level macroeconomic trends during COVID-19. First of all, price discovery is going to remain a central theme of 2020. Back in March, when the COVID crisis hit, a lot of lenders tightened their lending requirements. It made it so a lot of multifamily investors like me suddenly weren't able to give as high of a bid as the seller was looking for. And so you started to see a rift in between what buyers were willing to bid at and what sellers were asking. A lot of 2020, the theme is going to be rediscovering what the prices of assets are. Rent growths are going to be subdued. And so anybody who's underwriting new multifamily deals should make sure that they underwrite at, 0% rent growth for this year, or even negative rent growth if you're being extra conservative. State legislatures and local economies will cause differentiated recoveries across the US, and the length that stay-at-home orders is definitely going to dictate the volume of transactions that are going to happen within locales around the US. So one of the key things that you want to look at is jobs, our second large macroeconomic trend. Resilient jobs are going to make resilient cities, and vulnerable jobs are going to break cities. So what do you want to look for when you're looking at evaluating an area in terms of jobs? First of all, high concentrations of at-risk job sectors. We'll hit that in the next slide. The second thing to look at is, are you looking in an area where a lot of the jobs are just in one sector? A well-diversified economic base is something to look for, particularly right now when jobs are one of the key factors in multifamily property pricing. And then lack of anchor employees with cyclical staffing needs. We have a property in Memphis, Tennessee, and one of the reasons why we like that area is because there is a military base there, and they recently just converted over from being a temporary staging spot for troops where they ship in, train, come out, to having more longer-term employment jobs and more, I guess you would say, desk jobs. There's also an Amazon facility going in there. So these are longer-term jobs that are going to anchor the place. What are the highly affected sectors according to the North American Industry Classification System? Leisure and hospitality, mining, quarrying, oil, gas extraction, manufacturing, wholesale, retail, transportation, and construction. Of course, there are definitely exceptions to all of these. And one of the exceptions that I would point out is down here in Florida, you usually tend to think of this as a heavily leisure economy, or there are a lot of leisure-based jobs, but it's a very resilient area right now. You're seeing a lot of resilience through the Sun Belt down in Texas, but also in parts of the north and northwest up here. So here's a quick map of areas where employment rates are bouncing back. We're seeing a lot of steep drawbacks in highly appreciation markets, highly based appreciation markets. So one of the reasons why we like to invest in cash flowing markets, which are in the Midwest and in other areas down in the Sun Belt, is that you don't see these wild swings in price and property appreciation. The San Jose, San Francisco are some of the areas that are declining the most right now. Las Vegas is actually surprisingly benefiting from a trend of moving out of California. All right, here are some of the best cities in terms of their employment ranks. This is as of June 2020 here. Notice that a lot of these are secondary and tertiary markets, whereas the worst employment ranked cities tend to be your major cities over here. San Francisco, Chicago, Miami, New Jersey, Garden Grove. That isn't to say that you can't find good deals here. These are just overall jobs and economic trends. The source here is Wallet Hub. The third major macroeconomic trend, government intervention. So eviction moratoriums are backlogging the system. We're probably going to see an uptick in evictions going on, and that's going to keep NOIs softer and property prices down over the short term. However, and in C-class properties more so than A-class properties. A lot of A-class properties are able to telecommute. The people there are able to telecommute and keep jobs. Secondary and tertiary markets are benefiting from a flight to the suburbs. This is people who realize the home is becoming the center of the universe and they want to find a better place. So this is the fourth major macroeconomic trend that we're going to look at. And lastly, to summarize it all up, short-term turbulence of COVID-19 will put pressure on the resilience of multifamily assets, and robust underlying dynamics underpin an optimistic long-term perspective. So the economy for multifamily is looking in the short term like it's going to retract a little, but then the underlying economics are still strong. If you want to research any of this data on your own, here are some great websites where you can go research an area. Thank you.
Wow, you made it. That was amazing.
20 slides.
You weren't lying when you said 17 seconds a slide. Nice work. Wow, that was a lot of content in an hour and a half. Thank you, speakers. That was fantastic. When I came up with this idea of having 10 speakers present 10 different asset classes, I texted a few people, and within 2 hours, all my 10 speakers said yes. And I was like, oh no, now we're gonna do this. And I don't know how we're gonna pull it off, but we kind of did. So I am just so thankful for everybody for joining us. We have a lot of participants. So we're gonna do the breakout rooms really quick. Before we do the breakout rooms, huge shout out to my behind the scenes team, Israel Lopez, Alex Chin, and Neil Lee, for always creating such a seamless experience. I have all these crazy ideas, and then I go to my team and I'm like, can we do this? And they're like, yeah, we can do this. You got this. So thank you. So if you see them in the breakout room, give them a virtual high five, please. Okay, so we're gonna do this. How this is gonna work is the system's gonna break you out into 3 or 4 different, 3 or 4 people in each room. Once we're done, you're just gonna come back to the main screen, and if we have time, we'll do it again. And if not, then we're just gonna wrap up. So here we go.